The slap wasn't what shocked the room. It was the fact that Noah Bennett didn't react to it. The crystal chandeliers above the ballroom glittered like frozen stars, and for one strange second, every conversation died. Hundreds of eyes turned toward the center of the charity gala where Richard Bennett, one of the city's most respected businessmen, stood with his hands still half raised and fury burning across his face. "You are a disgrace," he said, loud enough for every guest to hear. The words hit harder than the silence that followed. Noah's cheek stung, but that wasn't what hurt. It was the familiar look in his father's eyes. Disappointment, anger, blame. The same look Noah had carried on his shoulders for years. A champagne glass slipped from someone's hand nearby and shattered against the marble floor. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Noah lowered his gaze and nodded once as if he deserved it. Maybe that was the worst part. He looked like a man accepting a sentence that had already been decided long ago. "Dad," he said quietly. "Please." Richard's jaw tightened. "Don't call me that here." The room seemed to shrink. Noah could feel the cameras, the whispers, the curiosity. Society loved a public downfall. He should have left. He should have walked away before things got worse. Instead, he stood there, frozen beneath the weight of years. "Everything this family built," Richard continued, "and you nearly destroyed it." A ripple of murmurs moved through the crowd. Noah's chest tightened. There it was. The accusation. The one everyone believed. The failed son. The reckless mistake. The embarrassment hidden behind polished family photos. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Defending himself had never changed anything before. Then a new voice cut through the room. Calm. Deep. Certain. That's enough. The words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. The crowd shifted instinctively as a tall figure stepped forward from the edge of the ballroom. Adrian Moretti moved through the sea of guests with the effortless confidence of someone who never had to ask people to make room. They simply did. Noah looked up, startled. Adrian rarely attended events personally. People talked about him constantly, but he remained distant from public attention. Seeing him here felt unexpected. Seeing him walk directly into the middle of this disaster felt impossible. Richard Bennett's expression darkened. This is a family matter. Adrian's gaze never left Noah. Not anymore. The room went completely silent. Noah felt his pulse stumble. Adrian stopped beside him and crouched briefly, retrieving something from the marble floor. A small silver cuff button that had come loose during the confrontation. Such a tiny thing. Yet Adrian treated it as though it mattered. He placed it carefully into Noah's trembling hand. Then he did something even stranger. He reached out and took Noah's other hand. Not dramatically, not possessively, just firmly enough to say you don't have to stand here alone. Noah stared at their joined hands. Nobody had ever stepped between him and his father before. Nobody. "Come with me," Adrian said. Richard stepped forward. "You have no idea what he's done." Adrian finally looked at him. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. "I know more than you think." Something flickered across Richard's face. Fear. It vanished so quickly Noah almost convinced himself he imagined it. Adrian guided him toward the exit. Noah's legs moved automatically. The ballroom blurred around him. Reporters tried to approach. Security intercepted them before they got close. Camera flashes bounced off polished walls. Questions followed them all the way outside. Cold night air hit Noah's face the moment the doors opened. It felt like surfacing after being underwater too long. A black sedan waited at the curb. Adrian opened the passenger door himself. Noah hesitated. "Why are you helping me?" Adrian studied him for a moment. Not with pity, not with curiosity. Something else. Something harder to define. "Get in," he said quietly. Noah slid into the seat. The city lights streaked across the window as the car pulled away. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It felt heavy, deliberate, like Adrian was deciding how much to say. Finally, Noah laughed once. A hollow sound. "Congratulations. You just became tonight's headline." Adrian didn't smile. "You're worried about the wrong thing." Noah turned toward him. Adrian's expression had changed. The calm mask remained, but there was tension underneath it now. Concern. Maybe even frustration. "What?" Noah asked. Adrian looked directly at him. "I want to know why you're still protecting your father." Noah's stomach dropped. The city lights blurred. For the first time that night, real fear slipped through the cracks of his composure. Because Adrian wasn't asking a question. He was revealing that he already knew there was something to hide. And before Noah could respond, Adrian quietly added, especially after what you sacrificed for him. Noah stared at Adrian for several long seconds after the question landed between them. Especially after what you sacrificed for him. The words echoed louder than the traffic outside the window. Most people believed the story Richard Bennett wanted them to believe. That Noah had nearly ruined the family. That he was irresponsible, weak, and incapable of handling pressure. Adrian was the first person who had ever spoken as though the opposite might be true. Noah looked away first. The city lights reflected across the glass like broken pieces of another life. You do not know what you are talking about, he said quietly. Adrian did not argue. He simply nodded once as if he had expected the answer. The sedan continued through downtown before turning into a private underground garage beneath one of the tallest buildings in the city. Noah followed Adrian through a secure elevator and into a penthouse that felt more like a private sanctuary than a home. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked miles of glowing streets. The space was elegant but surprisingly warm. Books lined entire walls. Framed photographs sat on shelves. There were signs of an actual life here, not just wealth. Noah suddenly became aware of how exhausted he felt. His shoulders ached. His head hurt. His emotions felt scraped raw. He took 2 steps toward the living room before dizziness rolled through him. The room tilted slightly. Before he could lose his balance, a hand settled against his arm. Steady. Firm. Adrian caught him. Effortlessly. Easy. Noah hated how grateful he felt for such a small gesture. Adrian guided him toward a couch near the windows. A few minutes later, he returned with a glass of water and an ice pack wrapped in a clean towel. Noah blinked. You do this for all your guests. Adrian handed him the towel. Only the ones who arrive after being publicly humiliated. Noah let out a short laugh despite himself. It surprised both of them. The tension in the room loosened slightly. Adrian sat across from him rather than beside him, giving him space. Noah noticed that. He noticed a lot of things about Adrian suddenly. The patience. The restraint. The way he never pushed when he could force answers from almost anyone else. Why were you there tonight? Noah finally asked. Adrian's expression remained unreadable. I was invited. You never attend those events. A pause. I attended this one. The answer felt incomplete. Noah knew it. Adrian knew it. Neither addressed it. Later that night, Noah wandered into the kitchen searching for coffee he probably did not need. The penthouse was quiet. He expected Adrian to be asleep. Instead, he noticed a light coming from a partially open office door. Curiosity pulled him closer. He stopped before entering. Adrian sat alone behind a desk covered with documents. Multiple screens glowed in the dark room. Noah recognized one name immediately. Bennett Holdings. His stomach tightened. More files covered the desk. Financial records. Legal reports. Investigations. Years of information. Adrian looked up the moment he sensed movement. Neither man spoke. Noah stared at the documents. You have been investigating my family. Adrian closed one file slowly. Yes. The honesty caught Noah off guard. For how long? Adrian held his gaze. Several years. Noah felt his pulse quicken. Several years. Long before tonight. Long before this conversation. Long before Adrian had any reason to care about him personally. Why? Noah asked. Adrian leaned back slightly. Because the story never made sense. Noah frowned. Adrian continued. Every article blamed you. Every financial loss somehow pointed toward you. Every rumor painted you as reckless. His eyes narrowed slightly. But when I followed the numbers, none of it matched. Noah stood completely still. Nobody had ever questioned the narrative before. Nobody had ever looked deeper. Adrian opened a folder and slid a single document across the desk. Noah approached slowly. His hands trembled as he picked it up. He recognized it instantly. A debt transfer authorization. One he had signed years ago. One he thought nobody would ever see. His breath caught. How did you get this? Adrian watched him carefully. Because someone wanted it buried. Noah stared at the signature. His own signature. The document proved something devastating. Years ago, he had quietly accepted responsibility for millions of dollars in debt that did not belong to him. Debt that should have destroyed Richard Bennett's career. Noah swallowed hard. He had never told anyone. Not a friend. Not a lawyer. Not even himself out loud. Yet somehow Adrian knew. The room felt smaller. The silence heavier. Noah slowly lifted his eyes. For the first time since entering the penthouse, he realized Adrian was not investigating him. Adrian had been trying to protect him. And that changed everything. Who told you? Noah whispered. Adrian's expression shifted for the first time that night. Not fear. Not hesitation. Something closer to concern. Then he looked toward one of the closed folders on his desk and said quietly, "That is the part you are not going to like." Noah could not stop staring at Adrian after those words. That is the part you are not going to like. The office suddenly felt smaller, the warm penthouse around them fading beneath the weight of everything left unsaid. Adrian rose from his chair and crossed the room toward the windows. Rain had started outside, soft drops tracing silver paths down the glass. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he opened a drawer and removed a thin folder. "I did not find that document by accident," he said. Noah's stomach tightened. Adrian placed the folder on the desk between them. Inside were copies of financial records, legal correspondence, and several hospital billing statements. Noah froze when he recognized the dates. 8 years ago, the worst year of his life. The year his mother became sick. The year Bennett Holdings nearly collapsed behind closed doors. The year Noah quietly disappeared from graduate school despite earning one of the most competitive scholarships in the country. Very few people knew why. "You investigated everything," Noah whispered. Adrian's expression remained calm. "Not everything." His eyes softened slightly. "Just the things nobody else cared enough to ask about." Noah looked down at the scholarship letter among the documents. His chest tightened. He remembered the acceptance call. He remembered his mother's tears. He remembered believing his future had finally started. Then came the hospital bills, the debt, the pressure, the impossible choice. He swallowed hard. "Nobody knows about this." "I know." Noah laughed bitterly. Apparently. Adrian stepped closer. Not enough to invade his space. Just enough to make it clear he was not judging him. "You gave up the scholarship 3 weeks before classes started." Noah looked away. "My family needed me." Adrian was quiet. "Your father needed you." The distinction landed harder than Noah expected. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. Noah folded his arms across his chest. "You do not understand." "Then explain it to me." The words were gentle. Somehow that made them more dangerous. Noah stared at the rain. "My mother was in the hospital. The company was bleeding money. Investors were pulling out. Someone had to stay." Adrian's jaw tightened. "So you accepted the debt." Noah said nothing. "You took responsibility for losses that were never yours." Still silence. Adrian exhaled slowly. "And everyone let you." Noah hated how easily Adrian saw through everything. Years of sacrifice sounded ridiculous when spoken out loud. Years of loyalty suddenly felt less noble and more tragic. "It was my choice," Noah said. Adrian looked at him carefully. "Was it?" The question lingered between them. Noah could not answer because he was no longer sure. The rain intensified outside. A flash of lightning briefly illuminated the room. Then the lights flickered. Once, twice, and went dark. The entire penthouse fell into shadow. Noah startled instinctively. The sudden darkness pulled him back toward memories he preferred not to revisit. Hospital hallways. Long nights. Uncertainty. Before panic could settle in, a small beam of light appeared. Adrian had already switched on his phone flashlight. "Backup generator should kick in soon," he said. His voice remained steady, grounding, reassuring. The strange thing was how quickly Noah believed him. Another rumble echoed outside. The building trembled faintly beneath the storm. Noah hated storms. He had never admitted that to anyone. Adrian seemed to notice anyway. "Come on." Noah frowned. "What?" "The generator room is on another floor. If it does not restart automatically, maintenance will need access." And Adrian grabbed a flashlight from a cabinet. "And I would rather not leave you standing alone in the dark." The simple statement caught Noah off guard. They rode the private elevator down several floors. When the elevator briefly jolted during the storm, Noah instinctively reached for the railing. At the same moment, Adrian's hand closed around his forearm, steadying him before he could lose balance. Neither immediately pulled away. The contact lasted only seconds, but Noah felt it anyway. Something quiet, something real. By the time they reached the lower level, the generator had already restored power. The crisis had passed. Yet neither seemed eager to mention the moment in the elevator. They returned upstairs in comfortable silence. Later, while Adrian took a phone call, Noah wandered through the penthouse library. Thousands of books lined the shelves. Framed photographs sat among them. One photograph caught his attention immediately. Noah stepped closer. His breath caught. The picture had been taken outside St. Gabriel Medical Center. 8 years ago. The same year his mother was hospitalized. The same year he abandoned his scholarship. And standing near the edge of the photograph, partially hidden in the background, was Adrian. Younger. Watching the hospital entrance. Watching Noah. Noah's pulse quickened. 8 years ago. Long before tonight. Long before any investigation. Long before they should have known each other at all. He picked up the frame with trembling fingers just as Adrian's voice sounded quietly behind him. You were not supposed to find that yet. Noah slowly turned around. His heart was suddenly pounding for an entirely different reason. If Adrian had been watching him 8 years ago, before the debt, before the scandal, before any of this became public, then the question was no longer how much Adrian knew. The question was why Adrian had been watching him in the first place. Noah stood frozen with the photograph still in his hands. The library suddenly felt quieter than before. Adrian did not rush to explain himself. He simply walked forward and gently took the frame from Noah's fingers before placing it back on the shelf. Neither man spoke for several seconds. Finally, Noah broke the silence. You were there. Adrian looked at the photograph. Yes. Why? The question came out softer than Noah intended. Adrian exhaled slowly. Because someone I cared about was being treated at that hospital. Noah waited. Adrian's expression shifted slightly, the careful mask slipping just enough to reveal something older beneath it. Grief. My younger sister. Noah's chest tightened. He had never heard Adrian speak about family before. The powerful, untouchable man everyone knew suddenly looked human. She was sick for a long time, Adrian continued quietly. I spent more nights in those hallways than I can count. Noah looked toward the rain-streaked windows. My mother was there too. Adrian nodded. I know. Neither spoke for a moment. The shared memory settled between them like a bridge built years before either realized it existed. I used to sit in the cafeteria every morning, Noah admitted, because I could not afford coffee from the cafe downstairs. A faint smile touched Adrian's face. I remember. Noah blinked. You remember? Adrian looked away almost immediately. You always ordered the cheapest thing on the menu and spent 3 hours pretending to study. Noah stared at him. You noticed that? It was difficult not to. The answer carried a warmth that caught Noah off guard. For the first time, the photograph no longer felt threatening. It felt personal, human, real. The next morning the storm still lingered over the city. Dark clouds covered the skyline. Noah woke earlier than usual and wandered into the kitchen. To his surprise, Adrian was already there, standing at the counter with rolled sleeves and a coffee mug in one hand. He looked less like a corporate heir and more like someone who had not slept enough. Morning, Adrian said. Noah frowned. Did you sleep here? Adrian glanced toward a stack of papers nearby. Eventually, Noah noticed the files immediately. Legal reports, financial summaries, more documents connected to Bennett Holdings. Adrian casually slid them into a folder before Noah could read them. The gesture was subtle, almost invisible, yet something about it lingered in Noah's mind. Before he could think about it further, his phone suddenly buzzed. The screen lit up with dozens of messages. News alerts, social media posts, headlines. Photos from the gala had spread everywhere overnight. Noah's stomach dropped. Adrian crossed the room immediately. Do not look. Too late. Noah stared at the screen. Comments, rumors, speculation. Strangers discussing his life as if it belonged to them. His breathing became uneven. The familiar pressure returned. Adrian gently took the phone from his hand and locked the screen. Enough. Noah laughed bitterly. You cannot protect me from the entire internet. No. Adrian placed the phone face down on the counter. But I can protect you from reading it before breakfast. The ridiculousness of the statement pulled an unexpected smile from Noah. Adrian noticed. So did Noah. Neither mentioned it. Later that afternoon, they walked onto the penthouse terrace when the rain finally eased. The city below looked washed clean. Fresh. Quiet. Noah rested his arms against the railing. You know what the worst part is? Adrian stood beside him. Close enough to feel present. Not close enough to demand anything. What? I cannot remember what I wanted anymore. Adrian turned toward him. Noah stared out across the skyline. Before everything happened. Before the company. Before the debt. Before my mother got sick. I had plans. His voice softened. Now it feels like that was somebody else's life. Adrian remained silent. For a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and handed Noah a folded piece of paper. Noah unfolded it slowly. His breath caught. It was a copy of his original graduate school acceptance letter, perfectly preserved. 8 years old. Noah looked up in disbelief. Where did you get this? Adrian's gaze held his. I kept it. The world seemed to stop for a second. Noah could not explain why those words affected him more than anything else. Maybe because nobody had ever treated his abandoned dreams as something worth saving. Nobody except Adrian. Emotion tightened his throat. Why? He whispered. Adrian stepped closer. Not enough to touch him. Just enough that Noah could see every detail in his eyes. Because somebody should have remembered what you gave up. The distance between them suddenly felt impossibly small. Noah looked at Adrian. Adrian looked back. Neither moved. The city noise faded beneath the steady rhythm of their breathing. For one suspended moment it felt as though something important was about to happen. Something neither of them was ready to name. Then Adrian's phone rang. The moment shattered. Adrian glanced at the screen. Something unreadable crossed his face before he silenced the call. A tiny crack in the comm. Gone almost instantly. Noah barely noticed it. Instead, he found himself looking at the acceptance letter still in his hands. Looking at the man who had somehow protected pieces of his life that even he had forgotten. That night, Noah fell asleep feeling safer than he had in years. For the first time since everything began, he believed he had finally found someone he could trust completely. He did not know that. Only a few rooms away, Adrian was sitting alone in his office, staring at a document connected to the Bennett scandal, his hand resting on a truth he still had not found the courage to tell. Noah woke the next morning with a feeling he had almost forgotten existed. Peace. For the first time in years, he did not wake up expecting bad news. He did not wake up bracing for disappointment. The acceptance letter Adrian had preserved sat folded on the nightstand beside him, and somehow that small piece of paper felt heavier than any financial report. Someone had remembered the version of Noah that existed before sacrifice became his entire identity. Someone had cared. The realization stayed with him throughout the morning. It followed him into breakfast, into their conversations, into every quiet glance that seemed easier now than it had a few days earlier. By afternoon, Noah found himself smiling more than he had in months, which was exactly why the betrayal hurt so much when it came. It happened by accident. The worst discoveries usually did. Adrian was called away unexpectedly for a meeting. He left in a hurry, taking a phone call as he crossed the penthouse. Noah had no intention of snooping. In fact, he spent nearly an hour trying not to think about Adrian at all. Then he noticed a folder sitting half open on the library desk. The same folder Adrian had been studying late into the night. Noah should have walked away. Instead, he noticed a familiar date. 8 years ago. The year everything changed. His stomach tightened. He reached for the document. 1 page became 2. 2 became 5. Then the world seemed to tilt beneath him. Noah stopped breathing. Because suddenly everything connected. The scholarship. The debt transfer. The hospital records. The investigation. The timing. Adrian had not discovered the truth years later. Adrian had been involved from the beginning. Noah flipped through the documents with trembling hands. There it was. A legal memorandum. A private report. Correspondence between attorneys. Adrian Moretti's name appeared repeatedly. Not as an observer. Not as an outsider. As someone directly connected to the original investigation into Bennett Holdings. Noah's pulse thundered in his ears. He remembered the photograph from the hospital. He remembered Adrian recognizing details nobody else knew. He remembered the acceptance letter. The questions. The documents. The concern. None of it had started recently. None of it had been coincidence. The office door opened behind him. Noah turned sharply. Adrian froze the moment he saw the papers in Noah's hands. Silence stretched between them. Heavy. Dangerous. How long? Noah asked quietly. Adrian did not answer. Immediately. That silence told Noah everything. How long? Noah repeated. Adrian stepped forward. Noah, how long have you known? His voice cracked this time. Adrian looked exhausted suddenly. Not guilty. Not defensive. Just tired. Almost 8 years. The words hit like a physical blow. Noah stared at him. 8 years. 8 years. The number echoed through his mind. Every conversation. Every act of kindness. Every protective gesture. Every carefully chosen word suddenly shifted beneath a new light. You knew I took the debt. Adrian nodded once. Yes. You knew my father let me take the blame. Yes. You knew everything. Adrian's jaw tightened. Not everything. Noah laughed bitterly. Do not do that. Noah, Do not stand there and pretend this changes nothing. The room felt smaller with every second. His chest hurt. You watched me destroy my future. Adrian flinched. The reaction was small, but Noah saw it. I tried to stop it. Noah froze. Adrian immediately looked away. Too late. The words had already escaped. The silence that followed felt deafening. Noah stared at him. What does that mean? Adrian said nothing. Noah took a step forward. What do you mean you tried to stop it? Adrian's expression revealed more than any answer could have. For the first time since they met, Noah saw genuine fear in his eyes. Not fear for himself. Fear of losing something. Or someone. Tell me the truth. Adrian closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, there was nowhere left to hide. I was the one who found the financial discrepancies. Noah stopped breathing. Adrian continued quietly. My family's legal team discovered irregularities inside Bennett Holdings. I reviewed the files myself. The room spun. Suddenly 3 different memories collided at once. Adrian attending that specific gala. Adrian already knowing about the debt transfer. Adrian preserving the scholarship letter. None of those things happened because he uncovered the truth later. They happened because he had been connected to the truth from the beginning. You investigated my family. Yes. You investigated me. Adrian hesitated. The pause shattered what little remained of Noah's trust. At first, the words landed like broken glass. At first, Noah looked at him as if seeing a stranger. Every act of kindness now carried a question behind it. Every moment of closeness felt uncertain. Had Adrian approached him because he cared? Or because he had spent 8 years studying the wreckage of Noah's life? So what was I? Noah asked softly. A project? A case file? Adrian immediately shook his head. Never. Then what? For the first time since Noah met him, Adrian had no answer. And somehow that hurt more than any explanation. Noah looked down at the documents scattered across the desk. All the trust they had built suddenly felt fragile. False. Incomplete. He remembered standing on the terrace with the acceptance letter. He remembered believing he had finally found someone safe. Someone honest. Someone different. Now all he could think about was the truth Adrian chose not to tell. 8 years. 8 years of knowledge. 8 years of silence. Noah slowly placed the documents back on the desk. His hands felt cold. You should have told me. Adrian stepped forward instinctively. Noah, please. Noah took a step back. The movement was small. It might have been the shortest distance either of them had traveled all week. Yet it felt larger than the space between entire cities. And when Noah looked at Adrian this time, the safety he had finally started to feel was gone. The silence after Noah left felt worse than any argument. Adrian stood alone in the library long after the door closed behind him. The scattered documents remained on the desk exactly where Noah had left them, like evidence from a crime neither of them knew how to undo. He had spent years protecting the truth and only a few minutes destroying Noah's trust. Across the city, Noah sat in his apartment surrounded by boxes he had never fully unpacked and memories he could no longer organize. Everything felt different now. Every conversation with Adrian replayed itself in his mind with a new meaning attached. The questions, the concern, the knowledge. Had any of it been real? The thought hurt because part of him already knew the answer. That was the problem. Adrian had been real. His kindness had been real. His patience had been real. And somehow that made the betrayal worse. 3 days passed without contact. Noah ignored every message. Adrian respected the distance even when it clearly cost him. He never appeared unexpectedly. Never demanded forgiveness. Never tried to force a conversation. Yet Noah still felt his presence everywhere. When groceries appeared outside his apartment after a 12-hour workday. When a reporter who had been harassing him suddenly disappeared from outside his building. When an anonymous payment quietly cleared an old legal fee Noah had been struggling to manage. The protection never stopped. It simply became invisible. Noah hated that he noticed. On the 4th evening, he left work exhausted. Rain soaked the sidewalks. Traffic lights reflected across puddles like shattered pieces of color. Halfway home, dizziness hit him unexpectedly. He had skipped lunch. Then dinner. Stress had a way of turning basic needs into afterthoughts. He reached for a nearby railing just as his balance shifted. A hand caught his elbow before he could stumble. Noah froze. He knew that touch instantly. Adrian. Neither spoke at first. Rain dripped from their jackets. Cars passed behind them. The city moved while they remained perfectly still. Adrian's grip tightened slightly to steady him. You look exhausted. Noah stared ahead. I am fine. You almost fell. I said I am fine. The words came out sharper than intended. Adrian released his arm immediately. The loss of contact felt colder than the rain. For a brief second, something painful crossed Adrian's face. Not anger. Not frustration. Something closer to disappointment in himself. Noah looked away first. Why are you here? Adrian hesitated. I was making sure you got home safely. Noah laughed softly. There was no humor in it. Of course you were. The words landed harder than he intended. Adrian nodded once as if accepting the punishment. Neither mentioned the fact that he had clearly been waiting nearby. Neither mentioned the fact that Noah secretly felt relieved to see him. The distance between them remained. Invisible, but enormous. Later that night, Adrian sat inside a private conference room surrounded by attorneys. The atmosphere felt tense. Legal documents covered the table. One of the lawyers looked uneasy. If you continue down this path, the board will not support you. Adrian remained calm. I am aware. Another attorney slid a document toward him. You are exposing yourself to substantial liability. Adrian signed anyway. Without hesitation. The room fell silent. What none of them knew was that the decision would cost him millions of dollars and place his own position at risk. The evidence he was protecting could finally clear Noah's name. But releasing it meant exposing decisions Adrian himself had made years ago while trying to stop the Bennett scandal from growing worse. It meant sacrificing reputation, influence, power. He signed the papers regardless. Move forward, he said quietly. Across town, Noah knew none of this. He only knew that every time he tried to be angry, memories got in the way. The acceptance letter, the hospital photograph, the way Adrian had remembered things nobody else cared enough to remember. Anger would have been easier if Adrian had been cruel. Instead, he had been kind. And that was much harder to forget. Another week passed. The distance between them stretched further. Then one evening, Noah arrived home to find a familiar envelope resting outside his apartment door. No sender. No note. Inside was a single document. A legal filing connected to Bennett Holdings. Noah frowned as he read it. His confusion slowly turned into concern. Someone had filed motions challenging the original financial accusations against him. Someone was actively dismantling the case that had destroyed his reputation. His heart began to race. There was only one person who would do something like that. Noah immediately reached for his phone before stopping himself. The impulse hurt more than he expected, because despite everything, Adrian was still the first person he wanted to call. He lowered the phone slowly. Outside, rain tapped against the window. Inside, the apartment felt emptier than before. Meanwhile, Adrian stood alone in his office, staring at the city skyline. His phone remained silent. Noah's silence hurt, but not as much as the possibility that Noah might never learn the full truth. He reached into a drawer and removed the old scholarship acceptance letter one final time. His thumb brushed the worn edge of the paper. Then he placed it inside a legal file that would soon change everything. Yet even as the truth moved closer, the distance between them felt larger than ever. And for the first time since Noah walked away, Adrian was no longer certain that the truth alone would be enough to bring him back. The call came at 6:12 on a gray Thursday morning. Noah almost ignored it. He had barely slept. The last few weeks had drained something out of him that coffee could not fix and time could not restore. His phone continued vibrating across the kitchen counter until he finally answered. Hello. The voice on the other end belonged to someone from a legal firm he barely recognized. By the time the conversation ended, Noah was standing completely still. His coffee had gone cold in his hand. The city outside his apartment window looked exactly the same. Yet somehow everything felt different. Adrian Moretti had resigned from 3 corporate boards. He had withdrawn from multiple ongoing business negotiations. He had stepped away from several public positions that people spent entire careers trying to reach. Noah frowned as he listened to the explanation. None of it made sense. Adrian was not the type of person who walked away from responsibility. Not without a reason. The attorney's final words echoed long after the call ended. We believed you should know because many of those decisions appear connected to the Bennett case. Noah lowered the phone slowly. Something cold settled in his chest. Throughout the day, fragments of information continued appearing. News articles, financial reports, legal filings. One detail remained consistent. Adrian was paying a price. A very large one. Yet nobody seemed willing to explain why. Noah told himself it should not matter anymore. He told himself trust had already been broken. He told himself he had every reason to stay away. None of those arguments stopped him from thinking about Adrian every few minutes. By evening, he found himself standing outside the Moretti headquarters building. He stared up at the glass tower without moving. Lights glowed across dozens of floors. Somewhere inside was the person he had spent weeks trying to forget. He almost walked away. Then he noticed employees leaving the building carrying boxes. The atmosphere felt different, unsettled, like the end of something. Noah entered before he could change his mind. The receptionist recognized him immediately. Her expression shifted. Sympathy, regret, something else. You just missed him. Noah's heart sank. What? Mr. Moretti left an hour ago. She hesitated. He is leaving tonight. Noah stared at her. Leaving? She nodded. Indefinitely. The word hit harder than it should have. Indefinitely. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Tonight. Noah left the building and drove across the city without fully realizing where he was going. His hands tightened around the steering wheel. Every traffic light felt too slow. Every mile stretched endlessly. By the time he reached Adrian's penthouse building, rain had started again. The familiar doorman greeted him with a look that immediately told him he was already too late. The private elevator carried him upward in silence. When the doors opened, the apartment looked different. Cleaner. Emptier. Boxes lined the hallway. Shelves stood half vacant. Pieces of Adrian's life had already been packed away. Noah's chest tightened painfully. He moved through the penthouse, searching for him. The kitchen. Empty. The terrace. Empty. The library. Empty. Then he stopped. A single envelope rested on the desk. His name written across the front. Noah. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it. Inside was a short letter. The handwriting was unmistakably Adrian's. Noah read every word twice. Then 3 times. Adrian did not defend himself. He did not ask for forgiveness. He did not try to explain away the hurt. Instead, he apologized. For the silence. For the secrets. For waiting too long to tell the truth. And at the bottom, one sentence stood alone. You deserved honesty long before you deserved protection. Noah sat down heavily. The room blurred for a moment. Because somehow that simple sentence hurt more than all the arguments combined. His phone remained silent. Adrian's number sat at the top of his contacts. Noah stared at it for several minutes. Then he called. Straight to voicemail. He called again. Nothing. Again. Nothing. The distance between them suddenly felt impossible. Not emotional distance. Actual distance. Physical distance. Real distance. The kind that could not be crossed with a conversation. Noah lowered the phone slowly. For the first time since the gala, he allowed himself to admit something he had been avoiding. He loved him. Not the version built from assumptions. Not the version created by hope. The real Adrian. The frustrating, secretive, protective, stubborn man who remembered forgotten scholarship letters and waited outside buildings in the rain just to make sure someone got home safely. And now he was gone. The realization hollowed him out. Night settled over the city. The penthouse remained quiet. Noah sat alone in the library where everything had begun to change. The photograph from the hospital still rested on the shelf. The acceptance letter was gone. The chair Adrian always used sat empty. Every corner of the room felt like a goodbye. For the first time, Noah truly believed he had lost him. Not because of a misunderstanding. Not because of a secret. Because he had waited too long. Because both of them had. His phone buzzed suddenly. Noah looked down without interest. Then his breath caught. The notification came from an investigative journalist. Attached was a single file and a message consisting of only 8 words. You need to see this before tomorrow morning. Noah opened the file. His eyes widened instantly. It was evidence. Not rumors. Not speculation. Actual evidence. Financial records. Witness statements. Internal correspondence. Proof connected directly to the Bennett scandal. Proof that changed everything. But before Noah could process the details, another notification appeared beneath it. A press conference had been scheduled for the following morning. Public. Live-streamed. Mandatory attendance from multiple corporate leaders, including Richard Bennett. And according to the announcement, someone intended to reveal the complete truth at last. The conference room was already overflowing when Noah arrived. Reporters crowded every aisle. Cameras pointed toward the stage. Corporate executives sat stiffly behind reserved nameplates. The atmosphere felt less like a press conference and more like the moment before a storm finally breaks. Noah barely noticed any of it. His attention went immediately to the front row. Adrian was there. For the first time in weeks, Noah saw him in person. The sight hit harder than expected. Adrian looked tired. Not physically exhausted. Something deeper than that. Like a man who had spent too many nights carrying a weight nobody else could see. Their eyes met for only a second. Then Adrian looked away. The distance between them remained intact. The conference began. Lawyers presented documents. Financial analysts reviewed timelines. Screens displayed records connected to Bennett Holdings. The evidence Noah had received the night before appeared piece by piece. The room slowly transformed from curious to stunned. Yet Noah barely listened. Because something felt wrong. Adrian was not supposed to be here. According to every report, he should have been halfway across the country by now. He should have left. Instead, he remained seated exactly where Noah could see him, as though leaving had never been an option. The presentation continued. Questions grew sharper. Attention gradually shifted toward Richard Bennett. Sweat appeared along his collar. His confident public image began cracking beneath the pressure of facts. But before anyone could force the issue further, another executive stood unexpectedly. Before we continue, the man said, there is one matter that must be addressed. Several screens changed simultaneously. New documents appeared. Internal board records. Corporate resolutions. Legal agreements. Noah frowned. Then his heart stopped. Every document carried Adrian's name. Murmurs spread through the room. One after another, the records revealed exactly what Adrian had sacrificed. He had surrendered voting control in multiple companies, resigned influential positions, accepted financial penalties, waived legal protections, all to release evidence that would clear Noah's name. The room erupted with questions. Noah sat frozen, because suddenly the pieces fit together. The resignation, the disappearing opportunities, the legal filings. Adrian had not walked away because he wanted to leave. He had been giving things up, one by one, quietly, deliberately. For Noah, a reporter stood. Mr. Moretti, are these documents accurate? The room fell silent. Adrian rose slowly. Every camera turned toward him. Every eye followed him. Noah's pulse hammered in his ears. Adrian looked toward the stage, then toward the audience. Finally, his gaze settled on Noah. Yes, he said. His voice remained calm. Certain. Every document is accurate. Another question came immediately. You risked your career for this investigation? Adrian did not hesitate. Yes. Why? Silence. Noah felt the entire room waiting. Adrian could have talked about ethics, corporate responsibility, legal principles. Any safe answer would have worked. Instead, he did something unexpected. He turned fully toward Noah. Because the wrong person paid the price. The words landed like thunder. Not because they were dramatic. Because they were true. 8 years of truth condensed into a single sentence. Adrian continued. For years, people accepted a story that was convenient. A story that blamed someone who never should have carried that burden. His eyes never left Noah. I accepted that silence for too long. The room disappeared around Noah. Cameras, reporters, executives. None of it mattered. For the first time since the betrayal, Adrian was not defending himself. He was choosing him. Publicly. Completely. Without conditions. Another reporter stood. Mr. Moretti, these decisions have cost you millions of dollars and several leadership positions. Knowing that, would you still make the same choice? A faint smile appeared. Small. Honest. Almost tired. Without question. The answer echoed through the room. Noah closed his eyes briefly. Every doubt. Every fear. Every assumption he had built since part 5 began crumbling. Adrian had hidden the truth. That part still hurt. But none of this looked like manipulation. None of this looked like control. This looked like sacrifice. The kind nobody makes unless something matters deeply. Then came the final evidence. Witness statements. Financial records. Internal communications. The complete chain of events surrounding Bennett Holdings. For the first time, the public narrative shattered. It became impossible to deny what had happened. Noah had not caused the losses. He had absorbed them. He had protected others at the cost of his own future. Gasps moved through the crowd. Headlines changed in real time. Reporters scrambled to rewrite stories they had repeated for years. Richard Bennett sat motionless. His influence could not stop facts anymore. Yet somehow that moment felt secondary, because Noah was no longer looking at the evidence. He was looking at Adrian. The conference ended in chaos. Reporters rushed toward exits. Lawyers gathered documents. Executives argued in hushed voices. Through all of it, Noah remained seated. Adrian stepped down from the stage. For a moment, neither moved. Then Noah crossed the distance first. The crowd parted instinctively. Adrian stopped in front of him. Close enough to touch. Close enough to see every emotion neither had successfully hidden. You were leaving, Noah said quietly. Adrian nodded once. I thought it would make things easier. Noah laughed softly. For who? Adrian did not answer. He did not need to. Emotion tightened Noah's throat. For weeks they had been speaking around the truth, around the hurt, around everything that mattered. Noah reached forward before he could overthink it. His hand found Adrian's. The contact was simple, public, unmistakable. Adrian looked down briefly before holding on. Neither let go. Not this time. You should have told me, Noah whispered. I know. I was angry. I know. I do not know if I can forgive all of it today. Adrian's expression softened. I know that too. Noah exhaled slowly. Then he squeezed Adrian's hand. The smallest gesture. Yet somehow it felt larger than every speech delivered that morning. For the first time since everything fell apart, hope returned. Quiet. Fragile. Real. And when they walked out of the conference center side by side, the future no longer looked like something that had been lost. It looked like something waiting to begin. 3 months later, the city looked different. Or maybe Noah did. For years he had moved through life, carrying responsibilities that were never supposed to belong to him. He had carried debt that was not his, blame that was not his, expectations that had slowly become chains. Now, for the first time in almost a decade, he woke up without feeling crushed by any of them. The Bennett scandal had finally been resolved. The investigations were complete. The evidence had spoken louder than rumors ever could. Noah's name had been cleared publicly. The narrative that had followed him for years no longer existed. People who once pitted him now respected him. People who once judged him now understood how much he had sacrificed. Yet the most important change was not public. It was personal. Noah no longer felt responsible for saving everyone around him. He had finally learned something that should never have taken 8 years to understand. Love was not supposed to feel like carrying a collapsing building alone. One quiet Saturday morning, Noah stood outside a familiar campus building with a folder tucked beneath his arm. Students crossed the courtyard around him. Laughter drifted through the air. Autumn leaves scattered across the sidewalks. The scene felt strangely familiar. He looked down at the acceptance letter in his hands. The same scholarship letter Adrian had preserved all those years. The edges were worn now from being unfolded too many times. Noah smiled softly. Life could not return stolen years. But sometimes it offered second chances. After months of conversations, paperwork, and recommendations, Noah had been accepted into a graduate program designed for professionals returning to complete interrupted academic careers. It was not the exact future he lost. It was something better. A future he chose for himself. His phone vibrated. A message appeared immediately. Are you nervous? Noah laughed. A second message arrived before he could answer. That means yes. He typed back. I hate that you know me this well. The response came instantly. Good. Someone should. Noah shook his head, smiling despite himself. Some things had changed dramatically over the last 3 months. Other things had become wonderfully predictable. Later that evening, Noah arrived at the same charity venue where everything had fallen apart months earlier. Crystal chandeliers glowed overhead. Elegant guests filled the ballroom. Music drifted through the room. The setting was nearly identical to the night that changed both their lives. Yet this time Noah did not feel small. He did not feel trapped. He did not feel alone. Across the room, Adrian stood speaking with several guests. The moment he noticed Noah, the conversation ended. Not abruptly. Naturally. Like nothing in the room mattered more. Noah still was not entirely used to that. Adrian crossed the ballroom toward him. The crowd seemed to disappear around them. You are late, Adrian said. Noah raised an eyebrow. By 3 minutes. Exactly. Tragic. Adrian smiled. The expression remained one of Noah's favorite things in the world. Not because it happened rarely anymore. Because every time it appeared, Noah remembered the man who spent years hiding behind silence. They moved toward one of the quieter balconies overlooking the city. Cool evening air greeted them. Lights stretched across the skyline. For a while neither spoke. The silence felt comfortable now. Earned. Eventually Noah leaned against the railing. Do you ever think about how ridiculous this is? Adrian glanced at him. You will need to be more specific. Noah laughed. The first time we were here, I thought my life was ending. Adrian's expression softened. I remember. Noah looked toward the ballroom through the glass doors. Months ago, he had stood in a room full of people and felt completely abandoned. Tonight, he stood in almost the exact same place with someone who had chosen him repeatedly, even when it cost him everything. The symmetry felt impossible. Beautiful. Complete. There is something I never said properly, Noah said quietly. Adrian waited. Noah took a breath. You were right about one thing. Only one. Do not ruin the moment. Adrian laughed softly. Noah continued. You said I deserved honesty before protection. He looked directly at him. I think you deserved honesty too. Adrian's gaze never left his. Noah smiled. Small. Nervous. Real. I love you. The words settled between them without fear. Without hesitation. Without conditions. Adrian closed his eyes briefly as if he had waited a very long time to hear them. When he opened them again, every wall that once existed was gone. I love you too, he said. Simple. Certain. True. Noah stepped closer. Adrian met him halfway. The distance that had once felt impossible disappeared completely. Beyond them, the city continued shining beneath the night sky. Ahead of them waited careers, challenges, dreams, and futures neither could fully predict. But for the first time, neither would face any of it alone. Months earlier, Noah had walked into this building believing he was a disgrace with nowhere left to go. Tonight, he walked out hand in hand with the man who had taught him that being loved was never something he needed to earn, and the future waiting ahead felt brighter than anything he had ever imagined.